Now here we're going to break down the digestive system by showing you the small intestine and the large intestine and the process in which the food has to go through. I hope this video helps very well. Okay, so I'm going to turn it around for you for the frontal portion and give you a much more clear version of what we're looking at. As you see, the rib cage, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine. So I'm going to enlarge it for you so you can get a clearer vision. This right here is the small intestine. It's about 28 to 30 feet long. And that's the large intestine. I'm going to enlarge that for you as well so you can get a clearer view. Now I'm showing you this so that you can get a really good understanding of the process of food and digestion and rest and digest. Now let's point into the stomach now. I'm going to enlarge it to show you how small the stomach really is and how it sits on top of the transverse colon. The transverse colon is the large colon that's sitting on top of, which is why it's very important to only eat small portions or a prescribed portion. Athletes, average adult, or somebody who's eating 1 meal a day. Now, as you see, there are the lymphatic vessels is sitting between. Those little nodules right there. It's a part of the lymphatic system. Well, it is the lymphatic system. Okay, here we go. Now take a good look. Understand that what we're looking at now is that we have to understand that when the body is processing food, do we really take into account of how much energy and contraction that it has to go through when moving the food around, breaking the food down? Now, have you ever thought of the process of the body having to move the food up the ascending colon? That right there in which I'm pointing to is the ascending colon. The food has to go up, and that is located in the right lower quadrant of your body, underneath the rib cage. And that right there is the transverse colon, which is where the body moves the food from the right to the left, down to the descending colon, into the sigmoid colon, and out your behind, which is the anal rectum. Let's turn it around for you so you can get a rear. So I removed all of the major organs here before I started the video because I wanted to go straight to the process and pointing out the small intestine from the rear. Now, if you take a closer look in which I'm pointing at, see where my finger is at and where I'm going to enlarge it, where the small intestine is located when moving the food that it already processed and which it no longer needs into the large intestine. That piece right there. So all of the food that we've eaten so far and the body's finished processing, has to now move it into what it no longer needs. And or if you are an overeater or a fast eater, it has to get rid of it quickly so it can finish processing the food that you are currently eating or currently digesting. So having the energy, what is called peristalsis, which is a contraction that moves the food into the large intestine. This happens a lot more when you're sleeping or when the body's at rest. It happens efficiently. So it has to move the food up and in. Look at that. So after the body has finished digesting and processing 20 feet approximately of food into the large intestine, now it has to go to the transverse colon. And most times we think that gurgling noise is hunger. No, it's usually the borborygmi. Now we think we're hungry, but we eat again, and normally we overstretch the stomach. Now it's sitting on top of the transverse colon, in which the body is trying to get rid of. We eat more than we're supposed to. It sits on top of the transverse colon, and what happens then is that it squishes and prevents the transverse colon from efficiently moving the fecal matter, which is the waste, into the descending colon, which now it is trapped. This is what causes that stretch, that bulge in the stomach, that pudgy feeling, that overfullness and tightness that we normally feel. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, that fasting is highly important. So you see how small the stomach is? This is why it's important that we eat 1/3 in which Prophet Muhammad and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that an eighth or a half a pound of food, and we chew it 50 times so the body can process it. But if we don't, then the food gets caught into the transverse colon, and it causes a very hard time to move over from right to left. And this is what causes our stomach to protrude outward. And this is what is called constipation. Constipation also happens in the transverse colon, in the large intestine. Ascending colon, transverse colon. So when you eat, make sure that you are chewing your food and eating a prescribed amount, which is a healthy amount. Whether it's 1 meal a day, and if it's two meals or more, make sure it's a small amount. And now, as you see here, as I turn the video, I'm going to remove the rib cage, the left rib cage here. And that purple organ that you see is there is the spleen. It has digestive juices as well. But that can also be affected by constipation in the large intestinal tract and the food in the stomach at the very same time by causing pressure. And once the food is moving from the transverse colon into the descending colon, it then moves downward. See? So that's the stomach there from the rear. That right there is the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine, in which most majority of the digestive juices is placed into to help process the food and break it down into the small intestine once again. Just making sure that this video is very clear for you to understand. So now when the food is being moved through the transverse colon into the descending colon, it has to go down. You see? And most of the time when the food is going down, we have already eaten again, and then the food now has to go, the digestive juices now has to turn on again to process the food that we are currently eating or have just finished eating once again. So this is why it's important to eat 1 meal a day. And for the youth, that we feed them foods that are high in protein, vitamins, and minerals. So now here's a video of me eating pizza. I'm going to speed it up for you a little bit. Rewind it. Here we go. Down the esophagus. Into the stomach. See the juices? Into the small intestine. See how it goes straight to the left? It goes to the left. To the left. See? Down. This is in the small intestine. These little pieces here on the side are called villi. This is where we either destroy by toxins or keep healthy by the healthy foods that we eat. And these are the parts of the small intestine that actually absorb the food. You see, and those are the digestive enzymes. And it's magnifying the villi that I was just speaking about, and that is the blood, that is the circulatory system in the villi that absorb the nutrients. See? And those are the cells that absorb the nutrients and immediately transport it into the bloodstream. And now, see, and that is the small intestine transporting the waste into the large intestine, which is the ascending colon. The energy that it takes to process the food to go upward into the transverse colon, that right there is the stomach, in which I was mentioning earlier that normally we would eat and overeat, and it would sit on top of the transverse colon, preventing the transverse colon to efficiently moving the food down and into the descending colon, into the rectum, and then out of the body. Here's a different picture to give you a different view and perspective, to give you a clarity. I'm going to remove those. So again, the small intestine turning into the rear. What you see here is the small intestine. Again, that right there is the small intestine. That's the last part that literally transports the food into the cecum, which is the first beginning part of the large intestine. So the energy that it takes for the body to move the food up, you see, upwards into the transverse colon, which is again located underneath the stomach, in which we sometimes think we are hungry, but it causes the borborygmi, which is the contraction noises that's moving the food throughout the system, down into the descending colon, into the sigmoid, and then into the anal rectum, anal canal, excuse me.